Okay, today we're gonna rebuild this alternator. This is for a Volkswagen Touareg Audi Q7 with a 3-liter turbo diesel. There's a lot of other ones that are similar with 220, 230 amp Valeo alternator. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pull off the pulley. In this case, I've got the 33 spline tool on an impact. You can also use the little kit that goes inside, but here's what we got. Okay, that's off. Now I'm gonna pull out this little ring here, like that, flip it over. I'm gonna pull the back off. In this case, I was able to work it off with my hands. Sometimes you'll have to use a screwdriver or a pair of pliers or something, get underneath the edge and pop it up around this one here. It's got some damage to it. I'm just gonna throw it away. I've got new ones. So that's the next step. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we got a 7mm right here. And pull out these 3 screws. Holding the regulator on. Pull those out. Pull the regulator off. You can see the wear on the slip rings there. These brushes are really short. Next, we switch to an 8mm to pull out the 3 bolts right here. 1, 2, 3, and we can do this 4. All 4 of those. Now we take a hammer and tap right there, and this will actually work it apart. It's hard for me to do while holding the camera, but don't tap too hard. Don't break these tabs off. Here we go. Okay, now we've got those off. We can see what it looks like inside of here. Here's the rotor and the stator. This one looks kind of dirty, but doesn't look tore up. Now we're gonna pull the rectifier off. For this, I use a little small screwdriver, and I place it right there. You can see. Let's see if it'll zoom in there. Focus, and then you work on getting that off. Try that out and around. Sometimes you might need a little bit of heat there, but just kind of work these off till the leads. It does take 2 hands normally to do this, but I'm trying to hold the camera. You can see that one's loose. We do that to all 6 of them carefully, and then we can get the rectifier rear housing free from the stator. Another thing that can help sometimes is if you take a pair of side cutters and in there, there's one on the top and one on the bottom there, and then that breaks those loose right there. Then you use a screwdriver to pull it off the rest of the way. Now to pull the front housing apart, pull the rotor out, I use this big 2-jaw puller and carefully tighten this down until it pushes that out. You've got to be careful because sometimes it's going to be pretty stuck and it's going to want to crack the housing, and that's not fun. Okay, now to pull the bearing off the back of here, what we're going to do is I have this. It's actually a alternator power steering pump puller I got from O'Reilly's, which I've actually modified for this. I ground these jaws down. And there we've got this puller installed. Just tighten this down and pull that bearing off. Now, here's the other part here. We've got these screws right here. These ones are very plugged up with grease and grime because this is from a diesel and it was leaking oil, which is what caused it to fail. Clean those out. Use a T20, pull those out, and get the bearing. Okay, now that we got this all apart, we're gonna take all this, clean it up. I use mineral spirits first, then I clean up all the grease, and then I use a walnut hole blaster for the housings, and we're gonna paint everything up, get it all nice. Okay, now we're gonna go to replace the slip rings, and here's a very important part of this. If you notice, right here on the slip rings, we've got these numbers. We've got the ends are covered in like a epoxy. But one of the things to note here, if you take a look at where these letters are, and then how right here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but the wire coming from the slip ring comes over, and then it goes to the inside of the wire spool. So if you look on the other side, you can see this one, it winds to the outside. It's very important to take note of this, which direction you put the slip ring on. It can go both ways, and if you put it on the other way, it will not work right. So what we got to do is we got to remember the letters go to the side where it goes in. You can also just scratch something on here, but this is how I do it. Not all of them have the letters on here, but all of the slip rings that I send, they have the letters on the new slip ring. So the next part, you're going to want to make sure to have these boys on. I didn't mention this before, but please wear your safety goggles. There's a lot of things that can fly around, and eyes are a little bit expensive and hard to fix. So make sure to put those guys on. For our next step here, we're going to go back to using our little screwdriver or a little chisel, and we're going to carefully chip away this. Now you got to be careful, because right underneath here, in line with this and here, there is a small wire. You don't want to break that. So we're going to carefully chip away all of this epoxy on both sides so we can get the slip ring out. Okay, now you can see I've chipped out all of that epoxy on both sides here. Now what we're going to do, if you see this side, let's see if I can get there. See this side here with the, where you can see the tab. Let's get underneath there with the screwdriver. Carefully work this up and fold it up around like that, and then that side is free. Do that on the other side here, and carefully, without stabbing myself, put that around, off. You can see there's both of them are loose. Put that out of the way, and now we're going to pull the rest of the slip ring off. Okay, to pull the slip ring off, I use a pair of pliers with deep grooves and just grab it like this while it's clamped in the vise. Well, I don't have it clamped in the vise, do I? Clamp it in the vise. Grab these pliers like that and twist. And then we're gonna work that off. And the other side, we're gonna work all of this off. Pry all this up. You can see, there it goes. Now we're going to put the new one on. Okay, remember when I said that it's very important to notice which way you put these on? So you see this is the new slip ring here, and this is the side with the lettering on it, and that goes on the side where it winds to the inside of the bobbin, which means we're going to put it on this way. Now I'm going to take it over to the arbor press, and we're going to press it down. Okay, carefully hammering this can also do it, but it's a lot easier to accidentally damage it while hammering. So just carefully press that down. There we go. Now we got to solder those ends. And the next step is we take and we crimp these ends down onto the ends of the wires. Then we're going to go solder them. Get over here at my soldering station. There's one. And the other. Next step I do, stick it here on the lathe, and we're going to true up this slip ring. Okay, now you can see it's skimmed off just a little bit there at this end. So we've got a little bit of tapering, and it's a little bit out of round, which is pretty common for these. So we gotta true that up. Here you can see we're almost there. Got a little bit more to go though. Okay, there you go. Nice and smooth all around. I didn't even have to use sandpaper to polish it. Here we go. Now what we gotta do is take some epoxy. Just epoxy up those ends there, just to protect it. And now a little bit of tape and paint. These, and these, and those, and we'll put them back together here in a bit. These 4 T20 bolts with the bracket. Slide the rotor on there. Slide the rectifier housing onto the stator, clocked right. Make sure this all go in. Okay, then I'm gonna stick that bearing on there. I use this pulley. Use anything that will hold it and support on that, and then tap that together. Now we're gonna slide this together. And put those bolts back in. Then we're going to solder each one of these stator leads onto the rectifier. Okay, now what we got to do, pulley on. So if you notice, these ones, they have the spacer already mounted to the pulley. There's no need to put the spacer back in. And there we go. And we're going to put the regulator on the back here. And just okay, so we got the regulator here, new OEM. You notice that this little cover is what holds the brushes back. Stick it on there, and then we push down with our thumb in the middle of that. We're going to tighten down those, put those 3 bolts in with 7mm, and we're almost done. If we look here, let it set up here. It bounces like crazy, but 14.5. 15.5. Charge is nice and smooth. There we go.